All right, we are opening the doors here. Hello and welcome to today's ATI webinar presented by GovMates. I am Meg O'Hara. I'm the Director of Engagement for GovMates, and I will be your moderator today. If this is your very first time joining GovMates for an ATI webinar, we are a technology scouting platform that provides matchmaking and networking and education and resources and all the things for small businesses in the GovCon space. And we appreciate you joining us as we focus on something we hear a lot from our companies in the innovation ecosystem, which is how do we move from OTA win, from like a first OTA win, to building a substantial pipeline for federal work. So how do we kind of like move past that sort of thing? To start us off, I'm going to give a couple of gentle reminders. One of those is to remove distractions. For us on the East Coast, it is lunchtime, so this is a nice little time to have a lunch and learn. You can stay out of your email if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine as well. We do encourage you to be active in the chat. You should see a chat box down there. There's also a Q&A. So if you want to give the chat box a test run, make sure you choose in the dropdown, you choose everyone instead of or just all panels and attendees so that everybody can see. Otherwise, only I will be able to see what you're sharing. If you only want me to see what you're sharing, that's fine as well. Use it to say hello, let us know that you can hear us, tell us where you're joining from. Any of those things are fine. And then we will be taking audience questions. So if there is something relevant to the group at large that you want to use the Q&A for, we'll make sure that we answer it during the session here today. If your question is a little bit more nuanced or needs a longer discussion, we would be happy to provide you with a way to connect with our presenters for kind of a more in-depth discussion after the presentation. So just because we didn't answer it doesn't mean that we don't have an answer or that we don't want to get you an answer, just that it might be a longer conversation and we want to make sure that we give you the time and attention that you need. Also, you should have noticed when you popped on that we are recording today's discussion. So once it's processed and it's posted, I will be sure to get a copy to you, the registered email address. And if you do not see that by like 24 hours from now, by tomorrow, we should get it this afternoon. But if you don't see that by tomorrow, you can reach out to ati@govmates.com and just say, hey, I would love a copy of the replay, and we'll make sure to get that over to you. Also, check your spam, just in case it came from me and went right to your spam box. So hopefully you'll be able to get a hold of that, and you're welcome to share that with anybody on your team that you feel would benefit from the conversation that we are having today. So before we get into like the meat and potatoes of things today, I get a chance to introduce our speakers. And joining us, we have Matt from Unanet. Unanet provides financial solutions designed specifically for government contractors as well as project management solutions. And Matt works closely with organizations that are scaling their operations in the space. So Matt, thank you for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about how you help and support the companies in our industry.
Yeah, appreciate it, Meg. So I've been at Unanet now for around 3 years, and we've seen actually a gigantic shift at Unanet for which the products we provide to the customers we service. We started as pretty much a like ERP-based company for accounting and project management, and now we're growing, as all software companies are, into the world of AI and also supporting broad areas across the business, not just from a project management and a project accounting perspective, but also from a business development and proposal perspective as well, really connecting what we call the front office, meaning how you win business, and the back office, how you do an account for that business, into one solution. So I'm excited to get into this PowerPoint with you guys today. I'm calling in from San Diego, California at our Global User Festival. Hopefully the hotel Wi-Fi doesn't cut out on me, but I'm stoked to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I remember the Unanet of the past, like years ago, right? You guys have definitely come through an entire transition, which has been really cool to see. So happy to have you, and thank you for joining us earlier in the morning. So you can your group can have breakfast. The rest of us will have lunch. And then we also have Kathy from ATI. ATI is a nonprofit organization, if you don't know this already, that builds and manages research and development collaborations to help the United States government solve complex national challenges. Kathy, would you do me a favor and tell us a little bit about what you do over at ATI?
Yes, I am a director in the Medical Threat and Countermeasures Division. We run six different programs, and I've been with ATI for 17 years, so I've seen a lot of different ones over the years.
Perfect. And again, you've also seen several iterations of things and how, things have changed from, pre-COVID times to COVID times to post-COVID times and all the things in between and how kind of the government has changed and especially the way that we kind of work together. So excited to have you on and to answer some of our questions because you have some of the answers that I don't have, and I appreciate that. So, the topics that we're going to cover today are going to focus on four major growth challenges that we face in the OTA space. So, first, how small and non-traditional contractors scale in the OTA ecosystem. Second, how to leverage OTA prototype work into follow-on production contracts or doing our best to do so, at least positioning ourselves well. Third, how we're converting OTA success into past performance that strengthens future federal bids. So, going from OTA to FAR, how that might work. And then finally, how companies manage the financial realities of scaling quickly when OTA opportunities move a little bit faster than traditional contracting. So OTAs can be an entry point for innovative companies, but the real kind of opportunities are what come next. And like I said before, there will also be Q&A time to hit anything that doesn't fit into the conversation already. So make sure you're utilizing that Q&A box should you need it. So before we talk directly about kind of the scaling piece, let's level set for a really quick second. Many attendees today are already active in OTAs, but they might be newer to this space, which is understandable. We have a constant influx of new companies, which is a really great thing to kind of invigorate the system as we continue moving on. And so other transaction authorities are flexible acquisition agreements used primarily for research, prototyping, and innovation. There are some other things that they can do, but those are the three things that we typically focus on. They allow government agencies to move a little bit faster and bring in non-traditional contractors that might otherwise avoid the complexity of like a traditional federal procurement process. Because for somebody who hasn't done it before, it's kind of a big beast. It's one of those things that's a little bit more nuanced in how we kind of get in and all of the recommendations and the requirements that are part of the process. So, Kathy, from your perspective, why have OTAs become such an important on-ramp for innovative companies entering the federal market?
Yeah, so it's has to do with a lot of the bullet points that you have on this slide, but also in the news lately, you've seen a lot about acquisition reform. The president also issued executive orders encouraging the use of OTs throughout government. So one of the reasons the OTAs have just reduced the barrier for small businesses to engage with the government, and that is, one of the things that we sell. So most of the consortiums have a small membership fee to join. But once you're in, you really get behind kind of a firewall where the government is allowed to engage directly with you. In traditional contracting, when they put a requirement out, they have to accept your proposal the way that it was written. They can't really talk to you about it. But in the OTA world, you can submit a proposal. They can see, you submitted tasks 1 through 5. They tell you they like tasks 1 and 3, but they want you to rework the other ones. So they can really give you direct feedback. And so that it makes for a stronger solution for the government. It's a win-win solution. And I think that engagement, we also offer early engagement. We have industry days. We tell you that requirements are coming out. The membership meetings are a great way to form relationships with directly with the funding sponsors. So I think those are a few of the reasons.
100%. And I also think that it's a little bit nicer to not have to go. It feels a little bit less like you're doing it alone, right? If you're part of a consortia, if you've got somebody kind of leading that charge as far as, funneling things down that makes sense. There is a full list of consortia on the GovMates site. So it's govmates.com/OTA. I'm actually going to put that in the chat here in one quick second. So you can see, through different verticals, through different government sponsors, like you can kind of look in there and be like, hey, here are the different things that I do, and here's how that might correlate, and here's where I might be best, able to fit. So I love that there's the flexible like the structure. You can actually have a conversation. I feel like it's a little bit more of a negotiation when it comes to the OTA space, where if there's something, if it's your IP or if it's, the art possible or the fact that you're creating something brand new, there's a conversation to be had versus just this is what we want, this is what it has to fit into, and here are the parameters. So it's a little bit more of that flexibility across that kind of makes everybody happy and gets you what you need and gets the government what they need, and allows them to kind of explore, like I said, the art of possible and to see that you might be able to meet a need they didn't even know they had. So meeting that original need and then being able to build on that is actually something that I feel is really cool and something that kind of helps us to stay ahead of different things. So the many companies, OTAs represent kind of like their first real opportunity to work within the federal government. And compared to traditional contracts, like a FAR-based contract, they typically involve a faster timeline, less administrative burden, especially if you're part of consortia. The consortia does help manage some of those things. And there's more opportunity for emerging technologies. So just because you don't have a huge backlog of like, here are all the things that we have and I haven't already made product, it gives you the opportunity to kind of create those things, like I said before. So the thing is, winning a prototype planning thing or a prototype award of something that you're building is really just like the first step in the journey. And so, Kathy, I want to know if you can talk a little bit about what you typically see companies struggle with after they get like that first win. They get a first win, they get in there and they're like, hey, I'm ready to go. But then what?
Yes. So we have seen companies struggle with, from winning to executing. And I will just say that many companies underestimate the required, documentation, the financials, having your financials in the correct systems, the reporting, really staying engaged with your government customers and not just going off and focusing on your research, but that engagement is critical. One thing that we see, especially at universities, but small businesses too, can think of these as grants, and they are not grants, right? Grants often get extended. At universities, they're trying to keep their staff employed for long periods of times, but these are awards that are milestone based. So small businesses really need to go into it understanding, thinking about the due dates that they're putting on themselves for the milestones, but then really focusing on hitting those milestones because that is what the government's going to be expecting.
And I think that sometimes I know that there has been CIBR and STTR news that keeps coming up and down. Not going to get into that today. Different discussion, probably an entirely different webinar. But I know that I'm sure that there will be some that come out there. But there is some, go between in what is available there. But I also think that that milestone piece is incredibly important and the piece we'll talk about it a little bit later, having some of those tools and in place that kind of help you to make sure that you're documenting things. While OTAs are a great, option for a lot of these things, that doesn't mean that that's just the Wild West and like anything goes. There is regulation. There are requirements. There are things that you have to have in place. It's the government, right? We're always going to have to be able to prove what we're doing and be able to document. So make sure that you've got all those things in place before you kind of like jump into here. Don't just think it's a free for all because we do have rules. So most successful OTA contractors do follow a similar growth plan. So it often begins with joining a consortium and responding to prototype solicitations and securing that first award. So first couple things done in there. If the project is then successful, companies can build credibility with program offices and position themselves for additional awards or follow-on opportunities or things like that. Because typically when you get into something and have a relationship, they're able to ask you questions about like, hey, what else can you do? What comes next? So when we look at organizations that scale successfully in this environment, Kathy, what differentiates them early on? What are the things that kind of help them stand apart? Because I feel like everybody does software technology stuff, but like there has to be something that sets us apart. What are the things that do that?
Yeah, so I'd say the ones that are doing well, they're treating their award as not a one-off, but a piece of their longer term strategy, right? So they're applying to proposals that, or requirements that make sense to their long-term strategy, right? And investments that they want to make. They're also not relying this non-dilutive funding that you're getting from the government can be a huge, huge help to a small business, but it should not be your only strategy. And the government, you can't, necessarily rely on the government to fund all of your efforts. So you need to be looking to the commercial sector and seeing where there's commercial applications for your technology and investing there. Also looking, at the VC world and looking to raise additional company outside this initial government. So I would just say, looking at it as part of your long-term strategy, that'll do you well.
So it's a piece of the pie, not the whole pie. So if OTA is your only strategy, we have to start like putting a couple other things in there, right? It's the whole don't put your eggs in one basket. Have a couple of different baskets that you're using.
Yes.
So one of the biggest advantages of OTAs is the potential for follow-on production awards, right? We've already gotten in, we've gotten started. If we're doing a prototyping thing or a researching thing, um, when we get into there, we all want to continue our win streak after that. So if a prototype project proves successful, agencies might be able to move more directly into production without launching a completely new competition at times, right? We're not going to have to go back in and have a brand new solicitation for that sort of thing. But that transition does not happen automatically. So companies need to demonstrate the technical success. We talked about that earlier, right? We're documenting things, we're hitting milestones. We are able to scale operationally and be able to move things forward as necessary if the timeline, goes a little bit faster, or if we're needing to do it a little bit larger scale, we're able to do that sort of thing. And then aligning with the missions necessary. So what should companies be doing during the prototype phase to set themselves up for a transition to a follow-on?
Yeah, so I think they need to be thinking beyond the prototype from day one. They need to be documenting their performance, just like you said, validating the use cases, and really trying to test their technology in operational relevant environments. And that's going to be different things for different requirements, right? But there's a lot of companies, third parties out there that replicate operational environments where you can go take your technology and do that testing. And I think if you build that in a piece of your demonstration, that's going to take you a long way. The other thing is using the consortium's network, right? And if you are working on one piece of the technology, but you do not have any way to scale to manufacturing, using the resources within the consortia to find those partners. So it could be manufacturing, it could be regulatory assistance, it could be accounting and financial support, but really using the network within the consortia to help you build your final solution.
Definitely. And you don't just join ATI as a whole, you actually join a specific consortia that has to do with your technology vertical. So there you can work across different consortia as well, depending on where you are and where there's some alignment there. Did have a quick question that says, what's the difference between a prototype solicitation and other solicitations among the opportunities offered by consortia? I know I've said a lot about the prototype piece. It's more of a concrete way to kind of discuss the follow-on production piece. Kathy, anything that you can add or offer on that one?
Yeah, I will just say most of ATI's OTAs are investing our prototype authority, right? So that means we're not investing in basic research. Most of them will have a technology readiness level included in the solicitation, and they'll tell you where on that scale you need to be. But at the end of almost all of them, you need to be having a functioning prototype. So that's what we mean. There's a very broad definition of prototype use in OTAs, and it could mean a lot of different things. It could be a software package, it could be a knowledge product, but just pay attention to the fact that we're not investing in basic research.
Right. It's not always something you have to hold in your hand. It can be a wide range of things, but that's kind of just the way that we package it for best ability to understand sort of thing. Companies that successfully transition to production tend to do a few things well that we've kind of touched on a little bit. So they build strong relationships within the program office or with whomever they're working with. They deliver on those milestones. We've talked about that. We've kind of hit hard on that one. So if you are coming out of here with a theme, it's the fact that you got to hit your milestones. You got to make your deliverables. And then they clearly communicate the operational value of their solution. So they can tell you why it's important and why it needs to continue and why we have to continue building on it. So in other words, they're thinking about that long-term impact, not just the success of that one prototype. How does it meet needs further? How can it be translated across different parts of the industry? And then I do wonder, Kathy, are there signals that companies should watch for to indicate that a program is has a better chance of moving toward production, so that they can kind of better finagle their positioning to get there in the future?
Yeah, so I would say, stakeholder engagement is key, and you need to be keeping that communication open. If you start to see additional stakeholders show up to any of your meetings, like someone from outside your original funding office, that could be a key indicator. This is a hard thing to figure out, right? A lot of times the program office that is funding your prototype is not the same that is going to have the money in their program of record for acquisition. So be asking your sponsor who that is and ask for an introduction. Go to the meetings where both of these people will be at, look them up and see what conferences. So you can just continue that further engagement. And then I would also say invite them. They're very busy, right? And they have this, your project is not the only project that they are monitoring. So invite them to your facility, invite them to your demonstrations, make sure that they are seeing your deliverables. And just that's really it. Just like key engagement. You could also pay attention to the budget cycles, right? When a program of record is going to get funding, it will be in the budget cycle. And those are long cycles. I think they're often built 2 years out. So work with a government liaison that understands Congress and the budgeting cycles and find where your program of record funding would be coming from.
I love that note. Matt, I'm going to throw this one to you randomly. I do remember in the past you guys did a report, an annual report that comes out. Is that one still, is that applicable here or is that a different portion of
Yeah,
it?
the gauge report.
Yes. I was like, I know it has a name. You guys still do that, correct?
We do still do that, but we don't do much on OTAs.
Okay. But
Yeah,
still, if there's a program that's got some, funding coming down the pike, it's good to know and kind of have an idea on that one. So also a resource to be utilized there as well. Just want to make sure that I kind of made that connection because something in my brain was like, no, I've seen this before.
yeah,
They posted about it on LinkedIn.
a lot.
Thank you. So from getting that award and things like that. Another major advantage of OTA work is the past performance credibility, right? Because sometimes when we come in, if you're a brand new company to the government sector, there may not be a whole lot of past performance that meets the needs that you are trying to get in with, depending on who your, potential clients are, right? And so even though these awards might not follow like a traditional FAR structure, they can still become a powerful proof point when pursuing other federal opportunities. So you have to make sure that you're capturing a whole bunch of things like keeping record of this kind of stuff. So technical achievements, mission outcomes, performance metrics, government references. I mean, if you're getting any of those CPARs, right? Find a place where you're keeping those where everybody can access them. I think that's one of the things where like, hey, we get, or even if you get like a kudos note that says, hey, this went really well, really proud of this person, blah, blah, blah. Make sure that that's sent to somebody in the management team so they can keep a hold of that. Kathy, what advice would you give companies on documenting and packaging their success effectively to be used later on?
Yes, I would just say be intentional about it, right? A lot of things like you just said, but don't assume that your results speak for themselves and buried in some technical report. Like be your own PR and marketing firm and be your own company's best advocate. Pay close attention to the contract and the regulations around publishing any results without government approval. But if you make it easy for them and you capture metrics that show, that you've increased capacity or reduced costs, all the things that the government is looking for, put those into a nice news article or press release, get approval for that before you publish it. But I just think like capture your own success stories and make them snippets that the government sponsor is going to be able to relate to.
Exactly. And that's where those review meetings and having a structure for saving the achievements comes into play. So having a system to draw from makes it an easier lift down the road. I cannot tell you how many times, because people are always moving, right? They're moving companies, they're moving positions, they're moving things. If you don't have one centralized place that you're keeping all of these things, when somebody leaves the company for whatever reason, that information might go with them. And it could be a really important piece of, something that you've created that's now gone or, buried in their file somewhere that you don't have access to. So whether you're using like a SharePoint or some sort of folder system, make sure that it's somewhere that everybody on the team can get to and that it stays no matter who's in the office. So that's one of those things we've noticed. Did have a really quick question. Where can we find the Gauge report? Matt, is there like I'm
There's a
sure.
link. Yeah, I can send it
Okay.
over to you if there's any email that you send out afterwards. They'll be able to
Yeah,
download it. The new one is actually going to drop in about a month and a half, but we do have like a little waiting list area. So
perfect. So a timely part of that. So yes, if you will send me that link, I will make sure that when we send out the replay to everybody, we'll include that as well in case anybody wants to jump on that and kind of see where we're going with it. Thank you. OTA work can also become a launchpad, like we talked about, for the FAR-based opportunities, especially for those who have not previously been inducted into the world of the FAR. So many companies use that prototype experience or that previous experience to demonstrate innovation and agility and technical differentiation. And this becomes particularly powerful when it's combined with strong teaming relationships. Kathy mentioned it earlier, that there's being part and being active within the consortium, not just paying attention to solicitations, but but attending industry days and things like that. Are really important. And this is where things like matchmaking come into play. If you are already an ATI member, it gives you automatic access and membership to the govmates platform, which makes you eligible for things like matchmaking, networking, ad hoc matchmaking requests that might come in. So as long as you have a govmates profile, you have access to all of those things as well, which is another resource that's really good for you. I will actually send as well the link that goes to that membership profile, just in case you haven't kind of accessed that. But I think the teaming piece is really important, especially like the industry days. So how can companies best translate some of that OTA project success into language that kind of resonates with a traditional federal evaluator, Kathy?
Yeah, so I would say they need to bridge the gap between innovation and acquisition. And so they need to frame that their OTA experience resulted in something. And oftentimes that's like buying down risk for the government. The government has already invested in this technology. They've tested it and then got it to this far. And so really using that language and showing what you were able to do. And it ties back a little bit to the success stories, that you were told to capture. We were just talking about on the previous slide, using those success stories, asking the funding sponsor who paid for your OTA work to write you a letter of recommendation on a proposal for a FAR-based contract. They might not agree to it, but it doesn't hurt to ask. And I think it always enhances a proposal if you're able to do that. So FAR-based contracts are, really focused on cost, schedule, and performance and past performance. So just making sure that you documented all of that.
Keeping it all in that one place. We don't hate that as an option, and especially since, you know, it's something that is easily done, and if it becomes part of the practice, it just becomes something that's second nature, and then it does become like an extra lift for anything, which is perfect. So successful contractors typically don't stop with just the one OTA. They don't get an OTA win and then just stop and say, okay, I'm done, and then just move right in. It's like we said, it's a one piece of a very more cohesive pie. They tend to build pipelines across multiple organizations or multiple consortia and mission areas. So if what fits in one place, there may be another consortia that has a similar or even the same, program sponsor that maybe needs the same things they're doing. So you don't have to join every single consortia. That's a lot, but it would be overwhelming to do so. But finding a few that match your capability vertical should be and could be very beneficial to you. So I will actually put another link in there. You can check out the capability search feature on the ATI website. They have a feature where you just you go to this website and you just type in your capabilities and it'll actually tell you which consortium match the things that you are doing. But that requires expanding the portfolio definitely requires consistent opportunity monitoring. And we don't want that to be, you've got SAM.gov, you've got other resources that you can take a look at, but it's almost like a part-time job, kind of keeping a up to date with kind of those things that are going on. So having something that's a little bit more nuanced to what you're doing is important. Also, having your ongoing relationship development is important. And then internal proposal processes are going to help you to better meet the needs of things that continue to come up. Because like we said, things will drop, solicitations come out. Sometimes you get advance notice, which is great. Sometimes, you might have been something that you missed, but it's something that's really great for what you're doing. And you need to be able to turn things around quickly. So Kathy, what operational capabilities do companies need to build as they move from one award to multiple program awards?
Yes, I think it's scaling your internal infrastructure and making sure that you can handle, the management of multiple awards. It's that discipline and making sure that you're meeting milestones, or at least, notifying the government if you're not going to be able to meet those milestones and asking for adjustments in your schedule. Another thing, this isn't really about multiple awards because it is so easy with the OTAs to add funding onto an award once you've already got an award. So be thinking some of the most successful companies I have seen, think about that in their proposal. And they are proposing options for follow-on work that the government didn't even ask for, right? But they are thinking strategically. I've seen one company propose 22 options, which I was like, this is ludicrous, but the government probably funded, I think, 12 or so of those options. So be thinking, I wouldn't propose that many, but definitely be thinking of follow-on work. Put it into your initial proposal as an unfunded option that the government can quickly go back to and say, hey, we have a little extra money that came in at the end of the year. Where are we going to put it? And you've already outlined a place for them to make that investment.
I don't know that I realized how nice of an option that is. And the fact that you can do that with, it seems unlimited. 22 does seem like a lot. But I
Yes.
mean, giving a variety of options of things that you could, it goes back to that art of possible. Like, here are all the things that are, here's what you wanted. And also, here's all the other really cool stuff we can do, which I think a lot of technical companies really like talking about because they're excited about what they do and they're the experts of that innovation and of that change and things like that. They're able to be a little bit more agile in the way that they adjust things. So giving the option is something that I feel is not always taken advantage of. So that's a really nice point to put a pin in for that one. So thank you. This is actually where I am going to invite Matt back into the conversation to give us some operational funding and financial perspective, where he's got the smarts on all of that kind of stuff. So, scaling OTA work often creates operational challenges. We talked a little bit about that with Kathy, and how there are certain things that we kind of have to pay attention to. So, companies may suddenly need to hire quickly or expand their technical team or manage multiple concurrent projects because we know we're not ever just working on one thing. Wouldn't that be nice? But we always have several different pots on the stove. So without the right infrastructure, growth can become chaotic. So Matt, what are some early signs that a company needs to start investing in a more robust operational system?
Yeah, this is one of those things where I think it doesn't show up in the data because you don't have access to the data. It's probably going to be 1 to 2 quarters where you're actually bleeding, whether that be your burn rate super high, or you're going to miss your milestone by a couple of weeks, where you actually have someone walk into an office and basically say, like, where are we at on this one milestone or project? Like, what project financials can we take a look at? And someone's going to come back to you and say, okay, I can get you that maybe in like 2 days. Like that would be like the first warning sign, like, because you don't have access to the point in time reporting that you need to course correct. This typically is like from a technology perspective, if you're working within different solutions that aren't connected, so your project management solution is doing one thing and your project financial solution is doing another, and there's really no API connecting the two, you're going to be at a huge risk of running two different separate, basically realities within one business. The second is that if you're trying to bid on new solutions or new products and your proposal turnaround time is, I don't know, 30, 60, 90 days, and you're not even bidding on new projects, entering new consortias, that means that you're either like hiring blind on decisions that you would have to make in the proposal process, that you would then have to like talk to when you actually win a certain opportunity.
So there's a few things in there that are going to kind of give you a little bit of an orange flag right before you get to your red flag. There's going to be something in there that definitely says like, hey, if it makes your stomach drop when the question is asked, it's probably time to update some of those processes, or at least, make sure that you're ready for the things that are coming down the path. So another major factor, of course, because if we need to hire more people or if we need to update our systems or whatever that might be, is cash flow pressure, right?
Mm.
OTAs move quickly, and companies may need to invest in staffing or some sort of R&D or an infrastructure update before funding fully catches up. I will say that it typically goes a little bit quicker from an OTA standpoint than it does from a FAR-based contract, but that doesn't mean that it's instantaneous, right? Nothing is when it comes to government stuff. So Matt, what financial challenges do companies commonly encounter when they begin scaling is at a rate
Yeah.
that's quicker than usual?
Yeah, I think a really timely example now is in the world of artificial intelligence. The models and the technology is it's growing rapidly. The experience that you may have within your organization may not be able to handle the type of contracts the government wants to fund or the technology that they want to go after. So you're going to have to go out and hire some new ML engineers, which if you win an OTA, you're not going to get paid out directly until you hit that milestone. So you're going to be spending up to like 400K on maybe two engineers because that's the going rate for an engineer now, where you are going to have to then like pay these guys, and then meet those deliverables. So you're going to have a huge hiring to funding gap, that could shift your indirect rates. And like as the most like OTAs are, I would guess, say like firm fixed price or milestone based. You're gonna have to manage those overruns until you hit your milestones. So I would say like get your milestones set. If you can negotiate your milestones up front and hit them soon, do so. Um, But if you don't have access to your capital, it's not going to work out, and you're going to need to hire some new people because the technology is moving fast. Kathy, I don't know if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, I
I was
did
like,
actually want
I
to
was like, I
add
see
something. You could
Kathy
tell I
on
wanted
mute.
to say something.
Go for it.
Just on the fix, especially on a firm fixed price contract, make we often will see companies submit a milestone payment schedule with huge milestones, right? And that is not going to help your cash flow. So do your best to break them up into chunks, reasonable chunks, so that you do have cash flow early on, especially.
Right. And if you get into a space where you need access to capital or some sort of introduction that way, we actually at GovMates have a whole host of individuals who focus just on that. So you can always, send us a quick email and be like, hey, I have some capital needs. Who can you introduce me to? And we're happy to help take care of that as well, just to help cover that gap in between. But definitely breaking down some of those milestones so that, things can be met quicker and you still have a continuous flow is a nice way to kind of balance that out and make it so it's not so scary. So we get from, cash flow to planning carefully around some of our funding cycles. So they are forecasting, like some of the ways that we can beat some of those cash flow issues are forecasting some of those staffing needs or tracking your burn rates or aligning your budgets with milestone payments, all those sorts of things. So it's really a lot about financial discipline, which becomes essential and is often not as easy to achieve as we would like it to be. So what strategies can help some of these companies maintain healthy cash flow while still growing quickly?
Yeah, we just talked about the milestone one,
Right.
but also getting really good with your forecasting. If you're running quarterly forecasts in a spreadsheet that doesn't really have access to any of your milestone rates or your project rates, you're going to be behind. So what we would say is if you invest in a solution, make sure that you have the ability to set different analytical dashboards that could look at forecasts on a real-time basis. So you're running those weekly forecasts that help you either adjust your costs or retrack where you're at in a specific project. Dealing a lot with small businesses, that can be kind of tough because these could be what we call like finder doers, like individuals that are finding the business and doing the business. So this could be like AI ML engineers who maybe have one finance person who's going to have to run the finance for the entire operation. So investing in a solution that can help you really build dashboards out easily and report on a weekly basis is going to help. But then it's also going to help your cash flow. I was a part of a project where we released a new solution for AR and AP automation. Cash flow is king. If you're bidding and invoicing, but then not able to collect on those invoices in a timely manner, you're going to come into a real cash flow problem. The one thing that I would say from an accounting perspective is a lot of accounting solutions have something that tracks DSO, day sales outstanding. It's essentially a way for you to identify how good you are at collecting payments. I would say in the world of AI and integrated solutions and integrated payment methodologies, move away from paper checks, move away from like one-time off payments. Like set up a software solution that is going to allow you to automatically send out your invoices on whatever routine basis that you want and collect payments automatically, and then account for those payments on your general ledger directly. Once you start doing that, you're going to free up time from basically being like a bean counting to being more strategic with how you bid on new solutions and new products. And then the last thing that I see a lot of people doing is overbidding. Like basically throwing solicitation proposals to the wind and hoping they get a W on it. I would say a 30% win rate on like five well-chosen bids beats a 10% win rate on a 50 bids, just from the amount of time and money that you spend on it. So,
Making sure you're being effective in the way that you're using your time.
yeah.
It's not always I throw spaghetti against the wall. Sometimes it needs to be a really, specific choice to make sure that you do the best that you can. Now, I don't know if this is a Kathy or Matt question, but it says, how realistic is it to ask for partial payment at agreement award for one of the milestones? So, like, is it possible that we get in there and be like, hey, when we win, we're going to start out with this sort of thing, as far as our first milestone is winning, and this is where our first thing is that we need to be paid for. So, is that something that's normal, or is it more of like a we have to provide something?
Yeah, they will, most of the time, they will not agree to a partial payment of a milestone. So be thinking of that when you write your milestones. But we've often seen, just you can use project kickoff, as a milestone, right? And put some funding to that so that you can get some funding very early on.
Perfect. So kickoff is a good place to do that, not just like a partial, hey, we're almost at this one. Can you pay us for it for now?
Right. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. There was also another question here that I'm just going to kind of throw in before we get to our next slide. Is what time frame or schedule would we expect from the time you discuss a prototype project with a customer and bring the idea to one of the consortia to like when an RPP will be published? Is there a typical timeline, or is it just kind of like dependent more upon funding or availability?
Yeah, I would say it's dependent on funding and availability. And I mean, that is often the hardest route is you bringing your idea to them, right? If it's not in their something they had planned to invest in and it's not in their budget cycle, that's harder for them to do. They do have, some pots of money where they can take some liberties with investments, but really it needs to be in their plan. So talking to them early on. But then a lot of the consortiums are moving to it's almost like an open BAA type solicitation. Before we would release a specific requirement and for 30 days, and then you had to respond. Now we're opening some solicitations with 40 topics that stay open for 6 months, right? And those topics are very broad. And if you can find a match to your technology, that would probably be the fastest route for you. And the timelines vary. But once a solicitation is released, we try our best to get it on a board as quickly as possible.
Perfect. So it's not always easy to jump in and put yours directly in front of somebody, but there are opportunities for you to kind of get your words in there if you need to. Somebody said, is this BAA type listing on all ATI consortia for RPPs now, or is it just a select few of them?
It's a select few right now, but I will say that we are seeing signs that the government is moving in that direction on a lot of them.
Awesome. And
Because
then another,
and partially for that reason, right? They meet a
yeah.
company at a conference. They would like to make the investment, but they don't have any way to get it on contract. So if they release something that's pretty broad, but aligned with their mission areas, they can sweep it into there.
Perfect. So it's a way that, there's a little bit more of an ability to get the stuff that they think is cool and that they see onto something that can come to fruition. Question was, is invoicing on OTAs through wide area workflow like FAR-based contracts? Is it the same timeline between milestone and invoice with deliverables and payment? Is that like the same thing, or is it like condensed?
No, your agreement is going to be with ATI in most cases, and we are paying you. So you're not submitting anything to wide area workflow. We're doing that on your behalf. And ATI's payment terms is usually 30 days.
So that's a nice benefit for those who have not been able to utilize an ATI consortia win sort of thing, or respond to a solicitation in that way. Always a good thing to know that you're kind of working through, and that's one of the things that ATI does really well. There's something I say on all of these. If you've ever listened to one of these before, you've heard me say this: that when you have a question or you have something that you're working with somebody on a project, there's a person behind every single one of those emails, right? So if there's an email on a website, there's a person behind it who's going to either direct you to the right place or get an answer to your question. So things like this are a nice reminder that they're here in the trenches just like the rest of us are. Next thing that we have on here, we have the right tools and the right systems that make a major difference. So tracking project costs, we talked a little bit about, forecasting revenue, managing compliance. It all becomes more complex as you get bigger. I think Matt alluded to that a little bit earlier. So how do financial and project management platforms help contractors kind of maintain visibility as they scale, sometimes more quickly than they expected?
Yeah, I think one thing that is very attractive for small businesses is to essentially go out and get a tech stack that is the most cheap um, and fills, I guess, a process that you need. The thing that I always see people doing is going out and doing like one project management solution, one solution for like timekeeping, one solution for profit and loss, and none of it is actually connected. I would say in the world of platforms where we're going, there are very good solutions that are one-stop shops, but not all one-stop shops are created equal. The big ones that everyone can think about is like the Oracles or the NetSuites, but obviously they're not purpose built for GovCon, which won't help you on specific project tracking and compliance. So I would say if you're going to go out and invest in a solution, do it early because like as we were saying earlier, like you're running into problems and the problems are going to show in the data, but the data isn't visible and trackable without the proper solutions in place. So it's very attractive to go out to like say like a QuickBooks and then connect it to everywhere possible. But I would say with new solutions like Unanet is doing, and then I'll even name a competitor like GovDash, they're doing. I would say run out, look at these purpose-built solutions and integrate them early and often, and make sure that you're not only connecting project to finance, but also business development to finance. There's a lot of times when the finance data will tell you that you shouldn't be bidding on a project. So say you upload a performance capability statement into your solution that you want to help write your proposal, but it's not identifying that your margins are always bad on these specific projects or you're running into cost overruns. So a real integrated solution isn't only connecting the project management to the project accounting solutions, it's also including those proposals and business development people as well.
And I think talking to somebody like you, Matt, is a great idea. Somebody who has knowledge of this space specifically and can help you kind of build what it is that you need. So, like we said, we've all, I mean, if you started a small business, you probably started on an Excel sheet and then moved to QuickBooks, and now you've kind of outgrown that. So it's always good to talk to somebody who has a little bit of knowledge about this space specifically and what it is that we see and what needs to be specifically followed, right? To make sure that we're getting everything that we need in one place, or at least putting as many things together as we can. Because like we might not, one company might not need the same thing as somebody else. So being able to build and put things together instead of grabbing something off shelf is often an option as well. So something that we've seen a couple times before. So before we kind of wrap things up, Matt, can you talk to us a little bit about some of the common pitfalls that we see when we're trying to scale and grow and continue the win streak?
Yeah, I kind of just alluded to one. It's data is everywhere. When you're wanting to expand or make decisions about the business, whether it's increasing the amount of projects that you're bidding on in one arena, trying to then move to a different contract type, you're not going to be able to make the right decisions if all of your cost data is in one system and then all of your win-loss data is in within another system. So I would say invest in the right systems before pain honestly forces you to do so, or like you get a letter from DCAA and you're not going to be able to pass an audit. Um, that's a big pain, and that's one thing that I've been talking to a lot of our customers about was the ROI, especially with back office solutions like project management and project accounting. It's a bit nuanced. It's not like a proposal solution where you submit more proposals and you get X number of more increase in revenue. Um, the back office solutions, I would say it's more keeping everything in check and allowing you to grow strategically, and then obviously avoiding any sort of cost overruns or negative externalities associated with not being able to count for a specific project. Um, I would say build a process that allows you to scale the revenue that you're going after. This is kind of a new space, especially within OTA, that um, like for SAM.gov, we're able to scrape opportunity awards and leverage AI to then match awards to strengths. So you're not commonly having to look through different NICS codes and all of that kind of stuff. I would say once you get access to one, two, three awards, um, like build out, I would say like an AI strategy. The first would be basically just copying and pasting solicitations into a large language model like Perplexity or Claude and basically saying like, hey, is this a good one to go after to increase that bid, no bid? But then also invest in the talent to actually build out AI workflows to pull in solicitations automatically that can then like identify the right ones to push out without any human eyeballs on until that point when you're saying, okay, we're making a go, no go decision. This is going to allow you to, one, focus on what matters. A phrase that I use often is planning to do the thing isn't doing the thing. And I would say if you're a finder, doer, small business, um, you want to focus on doing the thing. You don't want to focus on looking for new opportunities that you should be bidding on. Those opportunities should just fall directly in your lap. And then when those opportunities are correct, you win the solicitation, all of those key details should push into your project management solution and your project financial solution. So you're not doing double entry and you're also not missing any key data points.
Perfect. I love that. Planning to do the thing is not doing the thing. Also, when it comes to solicitations from an ATI perspective, once you join a consortium, you usually get access to their member portal, and most of the things that you can get more information on within the member portal will all be there for you once you have your login and things like that. They also have an app called the Collaboration app, and that one also allows you to kind of get in and take a look at what's there. You won't be able to click on it unless you're a member, as far as like getting more detail, but you can see what's kind of listed and what's out there depending on the different consortia. So two of those are also resources that you can use when you're doing that kind of stuff. Um, I know I have, Matt, I have your nice wrap up here. I'll let you go through that one before we jump into a little bit of a summary. And if anybody has any lasting questions or things that they didn't get to ask yet, make sure you throw that into the Q&A so that we can make sure we get to those before we close this out for the day. So Matt, go ahead on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. I think everyone's probably tired of hearing AI and software. Um, I think over the next 1 to 5 years, we're going to see a drastic change in user experience and integration from a software perspective. If you're an organization that doesn't understand how large language models retrieve and access information or connect to third-party data sites, you're going to be behind. And I would say treat solutions more as a platform that has access to your data broadly as a business that you'd be then able to take advantage of across the business. So business development is utilizing information from finance, and finance is utilizing information from project management. That interconnectedness is going to make sure that you're making the right decisions. It's going to avoid costs overruns across the business, and you're going to be able to grow strategically. One thing that we constantly think about is if you're a company that has a proven record of hitting their milestones and delivering their projects on budget, you should be tracking that and utilizing within your proposal system. That's something that a lot of business development people aren't doing today. So just thinking about the interconnectedness and moving forward as a platform and an intelligent platform utilizing AI is going to be key in the future.
Well, we all might be hearing about AI. I don't think it's going anywhere. So it's good to keep it, top of mind and sort of thing there. So to summarize today's conversation, scaling in the OTA space typically comes down to a few key factors, which is delivering your strong technical results, right? We're meeting our milestones. We're maintaining good relationships with the program offices, the people who you're working with, your teammates. You're building those strategic partnerships, ones that, you're a good teammate and they're a good teammate to you to make sure that you can kind of continue, especially if follow-on work is something that you're seeking, which I think we all are. And then developing your financial and operational infrastructure. So Matt talked a lot about that and making sure that you kind of have those things in place so that those red flags don't pop up when you're in the middle of actually trying to do the work. Because there's nothing worse than, kind of being sidetracked by something that you could have taken care of on the other side of that. So companies that treat OTA work as a long-term strategic pathway rather than like a one-off tend to be the ones that succeed here. So like I said, if you have another question about scaling or ATI in general or building any of those things, you're welcome to drop it in the chat. I do know that there was a question that came in that says, does ATI manage all of the consortia? No, they do not, but they are the leading OTA, I'm going to say, because I can say it, they're a leading OTA consortium management firm. So they're managing 19 plus, I think, of like the 38 or so. The number changes, right? But I'm across all of the consortium management firms, ATI does tend to manage the most of them. So if you're looking for expertise, you go there. And it's one of those things that you can find all of the consortia that are available, at least right now, on that govmates.com/OTA website that I posted in the chat earlier. But if you're looking for ATI specific consortia, that's ATI.org/collaborations. And that'll get you to kind of those that are focused there. And if you have specific questions about like, hey, would love to learn more about being part of the ATI family, but I don't exactly know where I'm supposed to go, you're welcome to reach out because you'll get an email from me. So, jump in, send me an email, and we'll be happy to jump on a call with you and kind of talk you through that and direct you in the correct place that needs to go there. If you have Unanet specific questions, anything about any of those flows or things that can be built, or, we'll get the link to you for the gauge report. You can email me as well, and I'll direct you to the correct place there as well. Somebody said, you mentioned that we're moving toward a BA type listing that'll be open for around about 6 months, right? Which allows time to develop responses, but are Are you also pushing the importance of AI to assist in proposal development given rapid turns? That seems to conflict. So I think that comes in. The AI piece is more for like a FAR-based because those are on places like your sam.gov and things like that. Whereas your solicitations for specific technology vertical solutions are more on your consortia for your innovation space. Kathy, I saw that you unmuted. Do you have things to add?
And I think when Matt was talking, and Matt can correct me, but he was talking about using AI to scout your opportunities and maybe start the framing for them. Well, what I would say is the government is starting to crack down on people using AI to write their proposals, right? So just be careful with that. They don't want a million proposals. They want good ones. And so some of them are going to be switching even to almost like a video type of interview type thing to make sure that there's a live person and a team behind the proposal because they honestly they've seen a strong intake or uptake in AI proposals, so I wouldn't use them to write your proposal.
Right. You still I feel like you still need a human. Matt, anything to add there?
Yeah.
No, no. The thing that we stress is human in the loop. If you're letting AI run wild with your proposal, you're going to have a really bad proposal. Or I would say you'd have a really good pink team draft that you're going to be submitting as your final draft. Um, the thing that I would say is, yeah, not all AI is created equally. There are solutions that are out there that are developing or building upon frontier models like ChatGPT and Claude, specifically for the GovCon space, specializing like in FedRAMP certification, using CUI data versus non-CUI data, when to use and when not to use. So I would say like if you're a person using like a ChatGPT, probably get away from that and leverage a technology that's actually built for the contract awards, the agencies that you're going after.
To make sure you're being smart about the things that you're using. I appreciate that. It looks like we've kind of closed the loop on questions. Like I said, if you have other questions that have come up afterwards when kind of thinking about this later on in your day, you are welcome to send me an email and we'll make sure to get you an answer to those or at least direct you in a place that somebody smarter than me will be able to answer those. Matt, Kathy, thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise today. This has been incredibly helpful. And thank you, like I said, for sharing your experience. And thank you to everybody who was able to join us and stay on today. Make sure you stay connected with ATI and with GovMates. We're all on LinkedIn. We post a lot of the things that are happening. We have a lot of events coming up. So if you're not part of our newsletters, make sure that you are kind of in on those as well. And if you have ATI specific questions, happy to get those answered for you. So keep building relationships. And we look forward to seeing you at a future event, either in person or online. So thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.